Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the first installation of a segment I like to call Bibbidi Bobbidi Babble Time, where I talk all things Disney, from news, reviews, to unboxings, hauls, and eventually DCP updates. So today's topic is the Disney College Program. What is it? How can you apply? My experience getting in, and my role. So as far as the Disney College Program goes, you can definitely look up any information you want on it. There are other videos on it, but if you're looking for just a little bit of information, you've come to the right place. So for the Disney College Program, it is a national program, meaning you can apply to Walt Disney World in Florida and Disneyland in California. So this runs like a study abroad program would for your university. You go, you earn credits, you come back, you continue with your college career. You can begin applying from after the first semester of your freshman year all the way up to a year after graduation. So despite me graduating in May, I'm still able to apply, get accepted to, and work for the Disney College Program, even though I'm no longer going to be a college student. So this means that you have to do some research as far as what your department, your program at your university will allow you to do. You have to make sure that the credits you'll be receiving while away will still apply to your degree. But if you're a senior and you're going to be graduating like me, it doesn't really matter. So just make sure that you're in talks with the department that you are okay to go. My program at my university did not allow me to study abroad. So the fact that I was able to do this before starting my career was a really great opportunity for me to experience something outside of my college experience, and again, before starting out teaching. So you want to apply to the Disney College Program. What do? So there is a website just for the Disney College Program. You can opt in to receive email updates about the different programs. Now there is a fall program, Fall Advantage, spring Advantage, and if you're an alum, a summer program. Now, depending on when you're applying, you will be able to get information about the upcoming program. So for me, I was receiving information about the fall program, and you have to make sure that the program that you're applying for is in line with what your schedule wants you to do. So for both the fall and spring programs, there are what they call Fall and Spring Advantage. The fall and spring programs run just like a fall and spring semester would for university. Fall runs about August to January, when that winter break vacation would be, and spring runs from January until May. Now the Advantage program means that you get an extended amount of time within that semester, so you get like maybe a month or two extra. When I applied for both Fall Advantage and fall semesters and was accepted for Fall Advantage. This means that instead of leaving in August and coming back early January, I leave in May and come back early January. So I get to experience the parks during the summer, which is a really great opportunity for me and I'm super excited for. Now just make sure that if you are applying for Advantages, that your schedule again aligns with what you're looking for, that there will be nothing that'll interfere with that, because you will be out and about being a cast member and working for Disney. So when it comes to applying, just make sure that you're aware of when the programs begin and when they end, so that you can properly schedule your life for it. So when it comes to applying, now it's really helpful to both receive the email updates, and if you're on Twitter, to follow some of the social media accounts of recruiters, because they will alert you when applications are open and when waves happen. So for Walt Disney World, these waves come more often than Disneyland would, because Disneyland, being a smaller park, it is a little bit more competitive. Not impossible to get into, just going to be a little bit harder. So just keep that in mind when applying for the locations that you would like to be at. So now applications are open and you're ready to apply. You have up from the day applications are open until when they end to apply. It is not a first come first serve basis. So have no fear if you can apply the minute that applications open, because they don't even consider them in that way. Someone who applies later than me can move on quicker than I can. So it's nothing to worry about getting in right away. Like, you have up until the application window closes to apply, and then there will be a hereby date, either whether you were accepted for the program or not. So applications are open and you're ready to roll. You'll set up an account with the Disney College Program website. This will give you a dashboard, and this is where your application and your application status will be housed. There are 5 different steps as far as status goes. There's the application, in consideration, WBI, PI, and offer. You can get what they call NLIC'd at any time, which means no longer in consideration. This means that maybe you didn't have what Disney was looking for, maybe the roles that you applied for weren't what they had open, so you are no longer being considered for a position in the Disney College program. Don't fret, don't get down on yourself, it's not a big deal. People apply plenty of times before finally getting in, up to 6 or 7 times. There are people who can be lucky and apply first time like me and get in. I mean, it really just depends on your experience and how, if you are pushed forward, the web-based interview and phone interview go as well. So again, it can happen at any time. These NLICs do not come in waves. It just happens after Disney considers you for the positions, if at all, and then you get your answer. So again, don't give up hope, keep applying. You have up until a year after graduation to apply for this. Keep moving forward and you'll do just fine. So when it comes to filling out the application, it runs like a typical application for a job offer would. You put all of your personal information down, the roles that you're interested in, and your job experience. You do not upload a resume or a cover letter to this application. It's all done within their own online application process. So you enter in your personal information. They ask you for an email. You can put either a personal email or your university's email. Me being a graduating senior, I didn't want to miss out on anything, so I made sure to put down my personal email. It is entirely up to you. After putting down your personal information, you will be given a chance to select where you would like to apply for, the locations, and the times. So the locations, either Walt Disney World in Florida or Disneyland in California, or both. Remember, keep in mind that Disneyland is smaller and will be more competitive. And then the programs that you're applying for. So fall advantage, spring advantage. If you are reapplying after finishing up your program and are an alum, you can apply for summer. Those may not be available though, because applications do end up coming throughout the year so that they can hire when necessary for the correct program. So I put down that I was interested in Walt Disney World in Florida and that I was applying for both the fall and fall advantage program. So after inputting personal information, there is a section for you to choose your role. I did a lot of research when it came to roles. I wanted to make sure that any of the descriptions they had for the roles would align with what I was interested in and the skills that I have, and that I was going to be applying for positions I knew I would be happy with. When it comes to roles, you can rank them from high interest to moderate interest to low interest to no interest at all. Keep in mind you will be considered for any role that you do not put no interest for. So low interest, definitely, because that's what happened to me. And the moderate and high interest roles as well. Disney will put about 4 or 5 roles that they are looking to fill the most with. This can be anything from like custodian to housekeeping, quick service food and beverage, lifeguard maybe? I can't remember all the roles. I put no interest for all of them and I still got in. So, I mean, if you're looking to work in any role at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, go ahead and put some interest in any of them. It doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. Because then you'll be given the list of the rest of the roles you can put interest in. So this can be anything from PhotoPass photographer to quick service food and beverage, theater, children's activity, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or Pirates League. And really it just depends on what you want to do, what you're interested in, what seems the most fun, and where you'll be happier with. Again, do your research. You know what you're capable of, you know your interest, and just make sure that you are putting down interest for roles that you are going to be okay with being considered and potentially offered a position for. So after all the roles, I would say make sure that you screenshot what you put for each of them, because this will come in handy if you are given the push to end up completing a phone interview before potentially getting an offer. Just keep in mind it helped me answer some of the questions that I had from my recruiter when it came to phone interview time. So after roles, then you'll end up doing something like a resume where you will input up to 5 jobs and their descriptions for the positions you have within each job for Disney. Now this is, again, where your resume comes in. If you do not have at least 5 jobs, I would say just put in as many as you can. If you did have 5 or more jobs, like I did, I put in all 5 of them. I put in the 5 most recent jobs, ones that I thought would fit my roles that I was interested in the best. I just took the bullet points from my resume under each of those jobs and fit them into the description boxes on the application, and it worked just fine. Again, you're not uploading a resume, so this is your chance to put in the job positions you've had and your role within each job. And then after that, you are going to end up sending that application in. So double, triple, quadruple check to make sure that all the information on that application is correct. It's not impossible for Disney to go back and change something, but it is a lot of hard work. So I would say just make sure that all of your personal information, the roles that you put interest in, and the jobs that you wrote down are going to be correct. So after the application goes in, then you play the waiting game. Being moved forward comes in waves, and it's helpful to know when those are. So again, this is when following recruiters on Twitter comes in handy because they do a good job of alerting when a wave has happened. Usually the waves run from application to a web-based interview phase, or from a phone interview to an offer phase. So these waves, they can happen whenever, and it's really up to the recruiters when they are going to push out a wave because they do have a lot of applications to go through. Offers can come outside of those waves, so I would say check. You can check the status of your application on your dashboard. How often you check is up to you. If you don't want to drive yourself crazy, check maybe only once in a while. If you're like me and we're super eager to figure out whether you'd get an offer or not, you can check nearly almost every day, and your status will be updated as you go along through the process. Now, in any of these phases, you can get NLIC'd, so just be mindful that you may get an email that says, thank you for your consideration, but da-da-da-da. Those do not come in waves, so it can happen at any moment. So just make sure that you are checking your email diligently. Otherwise, you might miss out on either being pushed forward or missing out and realizing that you didn't get a chance to do the program this time around. So after you do the application, you wait, and you can potentially be pushed into the phase of in consideration. This is when Disney is looking at your application, seeing your job experience, and whether you'd be a possible good fit for the program. So then if you do get past this in consideration phase, you are sent an email and asked to do a WBI. This is a web-based interview, and it is exactly that. It is an interview you take online, and it is an immediate response back about whether you are pushed into the phone interview phase or not. So the web-based interview you can take on your own time. It is timed, so just make sure you allot the amount of time, I think it was like 45 minutes for this interview, and so make sure that whenever you decide to take it that you are able to sit down and focus on this. So I received the WBI email midway through my workday, and it said, Disney would like to get to know you better, please complete this web-based interview. I was super excited, so I waited until that evening where I was in a calm place where I could really focus on my answers, and I started to complete the interview. These questions are mainly about you and who you are as both a person, a worker, and a potential roommate. And these are sort of like surveys where you answer either this sounds most like me all the way to this doesn't sound most like me, and then there's a neutral in the middle, and I believe there is 5 different bubbles that you can fill in for any question. These are timed questions, so just be mindful of that when you're reading through them and really thinking about your answer, because they will push you on to the next one even if you haven't answered. And if you haven't answered, it's not a big deal. I know some people who were worried about that but still ended up passing the web-based interview, so again, it's not a big deal. I would say choose the first answer that comes to you and then move on. Now, these questions are things like, I'm a super lazy person, I come to work on time, I am super excited to have roommates, I am never late to work. They can reword questions differently later in the WBI, so just make sure that you are mindful of the answers that you choose for certain questions, because they can look a little bit similar to questions that you answer in the future. So I would say just go through the web-based interview, you know yourself, you know your answers, and just take a deep breath and get through it. When it comes to answering those WBI questions, there is a neutral answer, but try your best not to answer in the neutral. I did my best to answer either the lowest one or the highest one, or even just the ones like before that, before the neutral, because I just felt like Disney would want somebody who knew their answer and knew who they were. After you get through it, you are taken to a screen where it says, hey, let's schedule your phone interview, or probably something like, we're sorry, but you didn't pass. I don't know what it looks like to not get through it. I do know what it is possible to fail it. But again, don't give up hope. You can still keep applying. If you did pass and you are asked to do a phone interview, you can schedule your phone interview for a certain time slot. Be aware of the time difference between you and either Florida or California, because they will say this is your time phone interview, and this is when the phone interview would be in that state's time. So just make sure that you're reading the emails correctly. They will send you one for both of those times. Make sure that you set it up for a time where you are going to have time to sit down and talk and give thoughtful answers, because this phone interview can range anywhere from 5 minutes to 20, 25 minutes. It really depends on the recruiter and, again, your answers to these questions. After the web-based interview, you play the waiting game until your phone interview comes around. I decided to do some research. I found some sample phone interview questions online, and I decided to type in my answers to these on a Word document and then just print out all of my answers and be prepared for my phone interview. There is a such thing as being too prepared. I guess I hardly used anything that I typed out, which is not a big deal, but again, it's just what made me feel comfortable when it came to finally come around to the phone interview and answering questions. I did screenshot my roles and what I was interested in, so I made sure that I had those roles set up on a separate sheet of paper, and personal skills that I've received while working my previous jobs that would fit best within those roles, just so I was prepared to answer, like, what makes you qualified to work for this role. Based on your recruiter, you can get either situational based questions, personal questions about you, your skills, and your work, or a mix of both. My recruiter asked a lot more questions about my experience rather than situational based questions. So situational based questions look like if you're applying for a character attendant role and the question is, a family wants to meet a character but the character is about to go on break, what do you tell the family? Stuff like that. My questions were more like, what 3 skills would you say you've gained from your previous job experiences that would help you with this? I worked a lot with kids, so it was like, what do you do to ensure the safety of children? And so it was just a lot of questions that, again, I wasn't fully prepared for, but I know myself, I know my work ethic, I know my skills, so I was able to still get through it. I personally believe the phone interview could have gone a lot better, but it was good enough for me to get in. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I failed, that was a terrible interview, they didn't laugh at any of my jokes, you could still get a role. I mean, it's really up to your answers. And so again, be mindful of your responses. It's okay to pause and think. They would rather have you do that than give an answer that you haven't thought fully through and have it sound mumble jumble coming out of your mouth. I took pauses. I really need to get my thoughts together when it comes to answering questions. So it was okay for me to sit and think and really figure out what I was going to say to that recruiter in response to their questions. I mean, it is like a phone interview for a job. So do your research, be as prepared as you feel that you can be, and wait around for that phone interview to come. Now, when it comes to the phone interview, besides being prepared, I would say just make sure you write down your recruiter's name. They always like you knowing names and faces, and you bring it up in conversation. It shows that you've paid attention. And at the end, when they ask if you have any questions for them, ask them some questions. It shows you have interest. I asked how they started out with the Disney company and also about their volunteer program that's in addition to the Disney College program where you go and do volunteer opportunities. So again, be prepared to ask 1 or 2 questions and make sure that you know your recruiter's name. And then after your phone interview, you play the waiting game again. So this is where following those recruiters on Twitter comes in handy. They will send out offer waves, where they send out offer emails to people who are interested in working with the Disney company at the Disney College program. These waves can happen whenever. It can be an applied wave or an offer wave. Don't bank on them both happening around the same time. Again, they do have a lot of applications to go through. So just be aware, make sure that you are in the loop with when these happen so that you know when to check your email. When it comes to this phase, you still can be NLIC'd, or you can be given an offer. And when you're given an offer, the email looks something like, congratulations, you've been accepted to the Disney College program. And that was probably the best email I've ever received. I was so excited. I opened it during my student teaching and I was like freaking out, and I told my co-teacher like, oh my gosh, I just got accepted to this. And so it was a really exciting time. Again, if you don't get accepted into this program, don't give up hope. It's not the end of the world. You can still apply. If you do get accepted, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. It's going to be the time of your life. I'm excited to start out my program. It is going to be just the most magical time. As far as my application experience goes, I applied when the applications opened on January 22nd. I was asked to do a web-based interview on February 6th. After my web-based interview, I set my phone interview up for February 13th. And then after February 13th, I played the waiting game and received an offer on February 25th. So I was accepted for the Fall Advantage as the role of a seater. So it's like a hostess where I'll be checking in families that have reservations and be showing people where they're sitting. It's nothing like working with food like a waitress or a cook. So I'm super excited to see what this role has in store for me, and I won't know my location until I get there, so it'll be a reveal for both of us, and I'm so excited to share that information with you guys as well. So from January 22nd to February 25th, it was a little bit over a month of playing the waiting game, but I'm so excited that this is where we ended up, and it just means that I get to share my love of Disney and my experiences with you guys even more. So if this wasn't enough help, feel free to search more information on the Disney College program. If you have any questions about my experience, any tips that I may have, feel free to ask me as well. My social media, as always, is in the description. Feel free to follow, like, comment, subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for following along.